Usually when we think about the mechanics of war, we picture the absolute chaos of a battlefield.
Right.
We think of the smoke, the artillery, the immediate visceral destruction. Like the danger is obvious. You see a cannon, you run the other way.
Right, because it's physical. I mean, the threat is just right there in front of you. You don't have to guess.
Exactly. But what happens when a war's most devastating battles aren't fought with cannons at all? What happens when the real conquest is, executed long after the smoke clears using just ink, paper, and a surveyor's map?
Oh, man. That is where the actual multi-generational damage is done.
Yeah.
The physical battle just kind of clears the land, but it's the paperwork that takes over the future.
That is exactly what we are getting into today. So welcome back to our deep dive into the visionary novel, Fünf Eide. Today we are jumping into part 3 of this incredible narrative by Dr. Pooyan Ghamari. And just for anyone joining us for the first time, that is pronounced G-A-R-E. We are picking right up from where we left off with Lena's investigation into her family's hidden financial history. She was digging into the shadows of the K Reserve. And today, our mission is to cross this very specific, very treacherous bridge.
It really is a bridge.
Yeah, we're traveling from the sterile, high-stakes corporate boardrooms of 2026 Basel straight into the muddy, blood-soaked realities of 1847 Switzerland.
We're looking at how borders and the wealth they generate are built, well, basically squarely on the ruins of the defeated.
It's a huge transition, and the way the author handles the transition between these two timelines is so clever because it happens entirely through the Basel State Archive.
Yes.
So it's May 2026. Lena is searching for a deposit under the name Evelyn Lowy, and the sensory details of the scene, they just do a lot of heavy lifting.
They really do. Like, Lena walks in, and the archive smells like cardboard and dust and cold water. She actually needs, it's the kind of building where you don't need the weather outside to know what season it is inside.
It's just heavy with this sort of bureaucratic permanence. And there she meets Dr. Marianne Schelling, who runs the archive. And Schelling just has this aura of a woman who is entirely used to explaining to panicked people that a missing file does not mean a missing history.
Oh, exactly. Which is incredibly relevant here because Schelling reveals the mechanics of what Lena's mother, Clara, actually did.
Right.
Because Clara didn't just stumble upon these historical documents, like the 1962 contract and that correspondence from 1944 to 1946, which we know relate to Miriam and Anton.
Yeah, she didn't just find them.
No, she actively separated them. She handed them over to Evelyn Louis in 1980, and then in 2002, they were locked under what's called a Schutzfrist.
Right, a Schutzfrist. And for anyone unfamiliar with Swiss archival law, a Schutzfrist is essentially a protective time delay. It's like a legal dead man's switch.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Clara mandated that these specific documents cannot be released to anyone who has a financial stake in the matter until the victims, like Ruth, have completely independent legal representation.
And the mechanism of that delay is so crucial because Clara's action wasn't just about hiding information. I mean, it was an exertion of extreme power.
Oh, absolutely.
Dr. Schelling points out that a piece of evidence can simultaneously function as a weapon. And Clara decided the exact prerequisites for the truth to be unleashed.
Yeah.
She maintained this absolute control from beyond the grave, basically ensuring that the blast radius of these documents would only hit when she deemed the targets were ready.
It's so intense. Lena, who, she makes her living as a forensic economist, she suddenly realizes her mother understood the weaponry of paperwork way better than anyone.
Better than her, even.
Right. And Clara, using time as a weapon to protect Ruth, it perfectly mirrors what Victor is trying to do in the modern timeline. Only, Victor is using corporate leverage instead of time.
Right, because Victor takes this enormous professional risk. He completely halts the payout of the K Reserve.
Which is wild.
It is. And just to reset the stakes here, the K Reserve isn't just some bank account. It is a massive pool of disputed historical assets that the Novalix holding firm is desperately trying to absorb and restructure.
Yeah.
So Victor freezing it, he basically throws a wrench into a multi-million, potentially billion-dollar operation.
He flags an ambiguity in the paperwork to demand a separate audit, risking his entire position at Novalix. And the corporate standoff is just so tense. You have Victor sitting in this freezing glass room with the president of the holding company, and then Mara Zing, Ruth's daughter, shows up in person.
Oh, I love this scene.
It's so good. She tells them she didn't come to negotiate. She came to learn, quote, how men in glass rooms look when they calculate for other people.
Man, what a piercing observation. It just cuts right through all that sanitized corporate language.
Yeah.
Mara is pointing out that these executives are essentially doing math with human lives, right? They're optimizing their balance sheets over someone else's generational trauma.
But I have to challenge Victor's role in this just a bit. Because isn't he sort of playing the white knight here?
Yeah.
I mean, by freezing the funds and triggering the audit, he is doing exactly what Clara did. He is making massive, life-altering decisions for Ruth and Mara without actually consulting them. It feels like a pretty massive savior complex to me.
And you're not the only one who thinks that. Lena actually corners him on that exact point. She pushes back hard, explicitly telling him not to spin this into a narrative where he saved them.
Thank goodness someone said it.
Right, but Victor's defense is rooted in just sheer pragmatism. He admits he's exhausted, but he explains that if he doesn't freeze the funds, a money flow will decide Ruth's life, while a bunch of executives argue over jurisdiction.
Wow.
Like, he knows he's taking away their agency in the short term, but he's doing it to block far worse actors from permanently erasing that agency in the long term.
It's a brutal moral compromise.
Yeah.
He basically has to become the monster in the boardroom to fight the other monsters in the boardroom. And right as Lena is processing Victor's justification, the modern timeline hits us with a staggering twist.
Out of nowhere, Daryoush goes completely off the grid.
Yes, phone is off. He vanishes from Basel. And when he finally calls Lena, there's just the sound of wind in the background. It's so eerie. And then he confesses that the forged signature on the K Reserve document, the forgery that set this entire investigation into motion, is his.
It completely shatters everything we thought we knew about Clara's isolation and Daryoush's involvement. It's a massive revelation.
It really is. And he tells Lena to meet him in Rapperswil, by the water, so he can show her what Clara actually took out of the archive volume.
And that mention of the water in Rapperswil, that is the physical anchor the author uses to pull us into the past.
Right.
Because Lena finds a tiny envelope hidden in the archive box. And inside is a letter from 1847. It's water-stained, its edges are wavy, and it's signed simply with the letter V.
This letter bridges the 2026 corporate battlefield to the literal historical battlefields of 19th century Switzerland. But before we drop fully into 1847, the narrative introduces 4 specific historical vignettes. They're numbered A4 through A7 in the archives.
And these are basically the philosophical keys to understanding the entire rest of the book.
Absolutely.
They establish this historical pattern of how high-minded ideals are weaponized. So the first is from 1653, featuring a woman named Magda. Her husband goes off to fight in a peasant uprising for freedom, but Magda is the one at home balancing the books.
Yeah, dealing with the reality.
Exactly. She realizes that when the ruling lords decide to change the currency, the same sack of salt suddenly costs more. The physical salt hasn't changed. The labor to mine it hasn't changed. It's just the math imposed from above.
And she writes this devastating note. She says, freedom you can't eat gets expensive for those who don't command it.
Wow.
It perfectly captures how economic reality just crushes political rhetoric. And we see this again in 1798 and 1803 with Johann and his daughter Elsbeth.
Right. The French armies arrive talking about equality and the end of the subject class. But Johann realizes the only real difference is the handwriting on his tax forms.
Basically, yeah.
The old lords took his money because they were lords, and the new leaders take his money to build a state apparatus. The money still leaves his pocket.
It does. And Elsbeth later watches the grand promises of Swiss neutrality roll in around 1815. And while all the politicians are cheering for peace, she just wants to know if she can cross the lake with her goods without getting robbed.
Right.
She notes that a peaceful country has to pay for it anew every day, basically saying the burden of peace always falls on the working class.
Which brings us to the final archive piece in 1831, featuring a surveyor named Jacob Keller. And this one blew my mind.
Oh, me too.
Jacob understands that drawing a line on a map isn't just recording geography, it's an active creation of reality. It's the beginning of a toll, or a property dispute, or a new border. Jacob notes, a map is a decision that looks like it didn't make one.
It's the illusion of objectivity. A map presents itself as this natural fashion of the landscape, completely obscuring the human agenda that actually decided where the line should go.
I mean, how true is that?
It's so true. I actually couldn't help but relate this to how we interact with technology today. Jacob Keller drawing a map in 1831 is exactly like a major tech company updating its algorithm today.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right, because they put out a press release saying they are just optimizing the user experience, presenting the algorithm as this neutral mathematical fact. But in reality, they just drew a new border.
Exactly.
They just decided which small businesses get visibility today and which ones go bankrupt. They decided who gets approved for a mortgage and who gets redlined. It's invisible architecture determining human outcomes, pretending to just be the way things are.
That is the exact mechanism at play. And Jacob Keller's realization about the hidden power of maps perfectly sets the stage for his son, Elias, who we meet as we shift into part 2 of the novel, The League of Losers.
Okay, so we are now fully in 1847 during the Sonderbund War, and we need to quickly establish what this was for our listeners. It was a brief but incredibly tense civil war in Switzerland between the conservative Catholic cantons, who formed an alliance called the Sonderbund, and the liberal, more centralized forces.
Right. The country is literally tearing itself apart over who gets to dictate the future of the federal state.
Exactly. And against this backdrop, we meet Vreni Kellen in the canton of Schwyz. The atmosphere in her family's house is just suffocating. Her younger brother, Josef, comes in late at night, and his boots are covered in fresh mud.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he claims he was checking on a fox, but Vreni knows the local terrain too well. She knows that foxes don't leave hoof prints in that specific mud.
Right. She's too smart for that.
Way too smart. She intercepts a note from his coat that just says, Nachtweg Nord, night path north. Josef is sneaking out, risking his life to run supplies or fight for the conservative side.
And Vreni is desperate to stop the bloodshed from reaching her doorstep. So she overhears a rumor that the opposing liberal forces might be waiting in ambush down by the stream.
Right.
So she uses local gossip and geographic knowledge as intelligence. She runs through the dark to warn an old man in the village named Benny, whose son fights for the opposing liberal side.
Yeah, she doesn't betray her brother's cause. She just tells Benny to make sure his son isn't waiting at that specific stream. She thinks she's doing this surgical intervention to save lives.
But the reality of a civil war is that there are no surgical interventions.
None.
The next morning, the outcome of her warning is devastating. Hans Brugger, a young man from Vreni's village who was working with her brother, doesn't come back.
Oh, it's so sad.
It is. His wife is standing outside Vreni's family farm, barefoot in the freezing cold, holding a child. Hans is dead. The rote was betrayed.
Vreni realizes the catastrophic weight of her actions. She didn't pull a trigger, she just whispered a warning to an old man in a kitchen. But she learns that in a war zone, a word spoken too early or too late is exactly the same as a rifle.
It's like switching a single track at a rail yard. You don't have to physically push the train yourself to cause a catastrophic crash. You just have to alter the route by a few inches, and the momentum does the rest.
That's a perfect analogy. Vreni realizes her words have a body count now. She can never speak simply or innocently again because she understands the lethal mechanics of indirect action.
And this trauma, this understanding of indirect violence, deeply informs her character when she finally confronts Elias Keller.
Let's talk about Elias. Because while Vreni is dealing with the immediate bloody trauma of the Civil War in Schwyz, Elias is sitting in a comfortable office in Zurich.
Right, nice and safe.
Very safe. He's a surveyor like his father, working for a man named Haldeman. And while soldiers are dying in the mud over ideology, Elias and Haldeman are looking at maps, plotting out where future railways might go once the country is unified.
Haldeman is the ultimate practitioner of disaster capitalism. He tells Elias that political decisions like the treaties, the constitutions, they are the absolute last people to arrive at the table.
Yeah.
Before the politicians even show up to declare peace, there is fear, there is credit, and there are men who know how to turn that fear into credit.
It's so deeply cynical. Haldeman explains that you have to buy the land when the public only sees the possibility of smoke. If you wait until the train is already running, the profit margin is gone.
Exactly.
So Elias is diligently tracking 3 specific farms owned by people currently fighting in the war. He knows those farms are going to skyrocket in value once the new borders and rail lines are drawn by the victors.
And this brings us to the climax of the section in December 1847. The war is essentially over, and Elias travels to Rapperswil to meet Vreni. The setting here is brilliant.
Oh, it's so cinematic.
It really is. They don't meet in a parlor or a church. They meet in an empty boathouse. The text notes it smells like fish and tar. It's raw, it's utilitarian, and it just strips away all the polite society pretense.
Right, so Elias arrives, and he tries to offer Vreni comfort regarding Hans Brugger's death. He tells her he doesn't want her to be alone with her guilt. And on the surface, if you were just reading the dialogue out of context, it sounds like a romantic, supportive thing to say.
But Vreni completely rejects it. She sees right through the mechanics of his comfort. She tells him that his version of support is actually just possession.
Yeah.
Elias has this desperate need to organize the world, much like a map maker. He wants to put everything, even her crushing trauma, into a neat little box that he can manage, understand, and ultimately control.
The physical encounter they have next on the rough wooden floor of the boathouse is incredibly intense. It's not some soft, romantic reconciliation. It's a messy, desperate collision. Vreni initiates it, but not out of forgiveness or love for Elias.
No, not at all. It's an assertion of pure physical survival. Her body is still alive, Hans Brugger is dead, and the political fate of her entire world was just decided without anyone asking her or her family what they wanted.
Right.
It's a profound, almost violent claim to existence in the face of absolute powerlessness.
And the whiplash of what happens right after this vulnerable moment is staggering. The political reality comes crashing right back into the boathouse. Elias pulls out his notebook, the exact notebook where he's tracking the 3 farms he plans to exploit for the railway.
Vreni sees this. She physically takes the notebook from him and puts it on the floor. And she delivers an ultimatum that defines the entire ethical conflict of this narrative.
Yeah, because Elias mentions he's going to burn to help draft the new constitution for the unified Switzerland.
Right. And Vreni looks at him and demands, if you're going to build something, build it so someone can actually live under it.
Gives me chills.
Same. She demands that he make sure the new architecture of the country isn't just written exclusively for the men who win.
This ties the entire deep dive together beautifully. Whether we are looking at Clara locking away historical documents in a sterile Basel archive to control the narrative in 2026, or Elias Keller in 1847 drawing railway lines over the farms of defeated soldiers.
Right.
The architecture of peace is almost always drafted by the victors. They draw the maps to secure their own future wealth, turning the chaos of war into the order of profit.
But as Vreni proves, and as Lena is discovering in the modern day, the losers of history, the people whose lives are treated as collateral damage in these grand economic restructurings, they refuse to be erased from the map.
They really do. They leave letters with weighty, water-stained edges. They leave hidden archive boxes. They force the architects to look at the human cost of the lines they draw.
The physical violence of the war may stop, but the economic violence encoded into the peace treaties and the property lines is just getting started.
Which leaves all of us with a pretty heavy concept to mull over today. Look at the maps you navigate in your own life. And I don't just mean geographic maps. Look at your city's zoning laws. Look at the corporate hierarchies you work within.
Oh, absolutely.
Look at the digital networks, the algorithms, and the terms of service you agree to every single day just to participate in modern life. Whose invisible decisions are you walking through? Who drew those lines, and what exactly did they gain by making those lines look like natural, unquestionable facts?
Once you start looking for the invisible architecture, it fundamentally changes how you view the world around you.
It really does. You can't unsee the map maker once you know they're there, and we are just getting started on this historical journey. Next time on our deep dive, we are heading straight into the dark. We are going to explore Blood in the Gotthard.
Oh, that's going to be a heavy one.
It is. We'll be looking at the brutal realities and the staggering human cost of the tunnel workers who actually had to carve Elias Keller's railway lines into the unforgiving stone of the Swiss Alps. You absolutely will not want to miss it. Until then, keep questioning the map.